Hello again from Mr. Heretic at Revelation Be Damned. We're going to jump straight in with a quick 5-minute summary, picking out my favourite verse from the 10 Commandments in Genesis, of which I made a longer video, but I felt the need to summarise this particular point. Now bear in mind these texts were found by a man named Moses at a mountain named Sinai, which they cannot find to this day. That he came down empty-handed off the mountain and somehow knew what these tablets said, and at a later date destroyed them, despite them being made by the divine creator. So once again, it's lucky that God spoke Hebrew, otherwise I can imagine it would have been difficult for Moses to have remembered what was being said. And how human of God to use such a primitive dialect. Let's jump straight in with the 8th commandment, which is as follows. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to your Lord your God. On it you shall do no work, neither you, nor your son, nor your male, nor your female servant, nor your animals, nor your foreigner residing in your towns. For in the 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. I apologise about my dodgy reading, I've got it a bit small here. So first of all, how kind of a God that plagued us with disease and death give us a day off. I don't see why an omnipotent maker would need a day off. I've met many men in my life that work 7 days a week. I feel that God would have been perfectly capable if he'd set his mind to it. Maybe, maybe not. Where the day system came from, when humans created the day system long after the creation of Earth, I'm not entirely sure either. I'm not sure if God was wearing a watch. What would tire someone that can create such magnificent universes? The Earth is tiny in comparison with the universe, so I can't imagine how knackered he must have been. He must have had a good few years off after making the universe. Once more, how kind God is to speak of servants, seeing as we all have equality and free will, despite there being so many people before his message came about, which will obviously face hell not having received his message or forgiveness. But the servants get a day off, which is kind, almost very humanistic. And you got to think, if you was the creator of everything, and you wrote a book that was dictating your biography of magnificence, would you be discussing ox and cattle and servants, about covering one's wife, about misusing one's name, or would one instead talk about the wonders which are far outside such a small scope? Such as the, I think it's 99.8% of animals that have been extinct before us, the comets, the universe, the Milky Way, and so much more, which could amaze us and blow our minds in this book. But instead, it looks as if what's been written was in fact made in man's image, which would mean that God was made in man's image, because if God was speaking of cattle, as opposed to the Milky Way, I'm not impressed. And neither should you. This single verse would act to destroy the memory of every species in existence that ever ceased to be, which is detrimental to the education of us, our children, our future, our scientific discovery, and our survival. Even says here, nor any foreigner residing in your towns, which means you must make sure that others do not work on this day. And obviously in the modern times you can't enforce this, but were we to follow the exact laws as they're dictated, it would be a very forceful way to live. My other video covers them all, but they're all basic morality points, which is disgusting to suggest that we wouldn't have got to where we did if humans weren't based on a primate instinct to form connections and love through mating and bonding and what have you. It's not based on medieval scripture. If you believe an almighty creator of the universe would speak of servants, then in fact that is what you are. But worse, a slave. I can certainly see no free will in this list of rules. Free will so kindly given to us without choice. To quote the late Albert Einstein, man's ethical behaviour should be based effectively on sympathy. Education, social ties, no religious basis is necessary. Man would indeed be in a poor way if he had to be restrained by fear of punishment and hope of reward after death. Thank you again for your time. The email will be in the description. This is Mr. Heretic from Revelation Be Damned, and as always, think for yourself.